You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. Otherwise, I'd be talking to myself right now. So we appreciate y'all showing up. At the very beginning, for those who are maybe brand new to Buddhism or maybe you've never taken refuge before, reciting that, at the very beginning, what I repeat is, it's called the Triple Gem, taking refuge in the Triple Gem in the Buddhist teachings, which I won't go into depth right now on that. I can later if anybody asks, but we take refuge in the Buddha, which is not the Buddha himself, but Buddha nature, bodhicitta, in essence, the enlightened being that's within all of us. We're no different than he was. He was human, we're human for the most part. And so we recognize that we too can awaken just like he did. We take refuge in the Dharma, which is the Buddhist teachings. And what helps us go from having a crazy mind that drives us insane all day long to having a crazy mind that drives us insane only like part of the day. So we look at that as the Dharma, the teachings we use to help us get through our days. And then the Sangha, which is the community of practitioners. At the time of the Buddha, it was the Buddha and the monks and the nuns and those who gathered. Fast forward to kind of a modern day, Sangha is really just the people that gather in a place like this to explore Buddhist teachings. But what I wanted to focus on for a few moments is the word Sangha and community, and really throw it out to you all, and feel free to chime in as you like. What is Sangha to you? What does it mean? When we take refuge in something, for me, when I give a longer talk on taking refuge, it's looking at finding safety, comfort, protection, whatever it might be, in these three gems, these three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So what does Sangha mean to you? And I don't necessarily mean some of you might be here for the first time. So in all of 10 minutes, I'm not sure you want to take refuge in something that's here yet. You should figure that out on your own. But just in general, not talking specific to this space, but what does taking refuge in Sangha and community, what does that mean to you? Or if you are someone that's been around for a long time and you've been stuck listening to me for year after year after year, what does it mean to take refuge in Sangha and community? So who wants to, yeah, that was quick. Thanks, Tom.
A sense of belonging.
A sense of belonging.
Comfort.
Yeah. Comfort, and can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, like when you're in your comfort zone with your people,
Mm-hmm.
if you uplift you.
Nice. Oh, are we your people? For now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. What else?
Support system.
Support system. Definitely. Interesting when you said support system, my mind immediately went to, and many of us may have seen or been around people who are on what we call life support. And so when you said support system, I immediately thought of someone on life support. And in many ways, while we might not be physically in that situation, in many ways, our minds, our hearts have been shattered and broken and destroyed for so long that often we go through our days and are in some sort of life support on our own. So, yeah, support system. What else? Yeah.
Go back to the whole isolation of the past year. I mean, that human connection is just really critical to people's health.
Yes.
So that's a lot of what this is.
Definitely. Yeah, just very simple, basic human connection after being potentially isolated for such a long time, year and a half. What else? I'm just stalling before we start the meditation, so.
Accountability.
Accountability, yeah, definitely. And that accountability goes in, many directions, really. How is it for you with accountability?
Just a place where I am held accountable for what I say matters to me,
Mm-hmm.
and who I say I want to be, and being that for others as well.
Yeah, definitely. We often have maybe not you specifically, and nor anyone else in this room, but myself, we often have this idea of accountability that comes from things we learn or what we read or any spiritual practice we may have. And then we have to walk out these doors and we have to we don't have to, we hope, we aspire to try to be everything we're actually looking and reading. And that's really difficult. And so a Sangha community helps remind you and hold you accountable to not being that person just here, but when you walk out the doors. So let's see. I'm just checking the spaces. Okay. Yeah, you're good. Thank you. If you could actually just stay right in the middle. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
To me, it's also important to understand that I'm not the only crazy one, there are others. That gives me hope.
So for normal, it's important to understand that you're not the only crazy one, that the rest of us are, you didn't say it this way, I'm paraphrasing, but that the rest of us are also all crazy, so it makes you feel better. Yeah. I talk about that a lot, that, it's important to surround yourself with people who also have a similar aspiration, which in many ways is to be less crazy. And that can be very comforting. Yeah, thanks.
There's a term in South Africa called Ubuntu, which means I am because we all are. And it's a way of, when I hear the word Sangha, I kind of relate it to that term.
Definitely.
And it's how I am because of all those around me.
For sure. Yeah, you've heard me talk about this before, but, for the hour that we're in this space, the people in here, we're really nice to each other, even if we're silent, that's still kinder than often we might be throughout the rest of our days. So being surrounded by people that, just by the nature of a space like this, you probably don't go to a yoga studio and start picking fights with people. It's not the reason you're going there. So just by the nature of coming together in a space, again, wherever it may be, we're often inspired to be kinder, gentler human beings. So.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
It's like we are not looking at each other, but we are looking at the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So everybody looking at
Yeah, we're not looking at each other, but we're looking at the same thing, headed in the hopefully same direction. Definitely. Yeah, thank you. All right, anything else before we start the meditation practice? Yeah.
For me, it's the foundation.
Foundation, for sure. A good starting place. Yeah, definitely. Not just starting place, just a good place. Yeah, thank you. All right, anything else? All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, most likely. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or doing it wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed, hand can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on a bench or a chair, also just trying to sit up straight, putting both feet on the ground, really having an upright position. Relaxing the shoulders, again, hands on the knees or in the lap. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts or you have an itch. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever's comfortable. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. As the mind wanders, jumping from thought to thought, start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments of the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after, compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen, and you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our days. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Imagine going an hour or making it home before you're disturbed. Meditation, this practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, then this practice helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess. So we can then make changes. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter all day long. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it is a practice, and it requires a tremendous amount of patience, which I know you all have, so I'm not too worried about you. So I think I'd rather just stop there. And as usual, I really prefer to just respond to your questions around Buddhist practice, meditation, anything that's on your mind, and we use the rest of the morning, or our time here, I should say, to address your questions.
You still doing the half-day meditations?
Not at the moment. We're doing a very limited schedule. As you know, we've closed 16 months. Not a single person in this entire 6,000 square foot building, other than a couple of us, for 16 months. So, huh?
It was deeply missed.
We missed you as well, and I'm glad you're back. No pun intended on the back. I know you haven't had the healthiest of ones, but pretty sure you walked in here. I didn't see Travis carry you in, so glad you're back. But yeah, after 16 months, as you slowly, very limited schedule and a lot of stuff we're just not doing yet. Yeah. Question? Yeah.
So I have this belief that yoga practitioners, yogis, did yoga to prepare themselves for like long periods of meditation. So I was wondering if Buddhism and yoga, like Hatha or Vinyasa, like the Aqua yogas, if they're intertwined or if they're just, I know they're complementary.
Sure.
Is the Buddhist philosophy and yoga intertwined at all philosophically, or?
So the question is that yoga was designed to prepare one for long meditation practices. I'm just repeating for our millions of YouTube followers, or 12, but either way, it's the same thing. And is there any kind of similar philosophies, or are they, how do they relate, basically, is your question. So I will always preface any yoga question with the fact that I am not a yogi. There's probably some in here that would, give you a better response, but I'll share my general understanding. Having done yoga and being around these communities, there's obviously a lot of overlap in meditation, Buddhist communities and yoga communities. Yes, to the first part of what you said, that was my initial teaching as well, is that yoga was done prior to extended periods of seated meditation. You have to think back to the time of the Buddha, when he was growing up as a child, he was, Siddhartha Gautama, living as a prince in India, and was Hindu. And so a huge practice within Hinduism and in India at that time was yoga. Then the Buddha, left home at 29. He roamed the Himalayan mountains for 6 years, sat down, started to teach after realizing why he suffered. And then people called him the Buddha. And then he taught for 45 years, and then he died, right? So his teachings were not yoga, and yoga teachings are not Buddhism. There's a lot of similarities between them. Both are telling you to do wonderful, beautiful, kind things to take care of yourself and others. So a lot of similarities. But in the same regard, there's a lot of similarities with all the religions. Pretty sure Jesus told everybody to go be nice to each other and love everybody and take care of yourself, So a lot of similarities with all the religious, spiritual practices over the last, few thousand years. But different. Yeah, different practices, different teachings. Yoga is not Buddhism. Buddhism is not yoga. Does that help?
Sure.
Yeah. Were you hoping it was the same thing, or?
No, I just was wondering if, you did tell me what I wanted to know, that it was around and then.
Yeah.
So I just was wondering, I know they complement each other, but I didn't know if they were like intertwined or not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like often people will, totally separate from your question, but the question around other religions and spiritual practice, things like that, very often someone say, well, what did Buddha think about Jesus? Well, Jesus was born 500 years after he died, so the Buddha wouldn't have had much to say about him. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom. Yeah, then we'll go.
Did Buddha renounce Hinduism?
Did he renounce Hinduism? I don't know that, to my knowledge, that he specifically renounced Hinduism. What I can tell you is that when he was asked very specifically, there were 12 or 14 questions he was asked that he would not answer. And one of them was specifically about belief in gods and goddesses, referring to Hindu gods and goddesses. Again, the god at that time was different than the god we would refer to today, or various gods we may refer to today. But they're talking about, Shiva, Vishnu, Lakshmi, Brahma, Saraswati, all the endless gods and goddesses. And he said, look, I'm just a human. If you believe in gods and goddesses, you do. If you don't, you don't. That's up to you. Meaning it wasn't his place to tell people to believe or not believe in their existing religious beliefs. So I'm inclined from that to think that he didn't renounce Hinduism. I'm guessing, Travis, did he say bad Hinduism? Any knowledge of that?
He often had debates with Brahmin priests about certain concepts.
Concepts of different, yeah.
As a whole.
Yeah. So he often had debates about certain concepts. There's because I've never, just like yoga, I've never studied Hinduism. What Travis said, for those who didn't hear him, is that he would often have debates with Brahmins about differences between Hinduism and Buddhism. One major difference between Hindu and Buddhist teachings that I know the Buddha was very, adamant about was what's called Atman, or a soul. And in Hindu teachings, there's a belief that the soul continues. The Buddhist teachings are around non-self, that there is no soul that is yours that continues. So that's a pretty big difference. Yeah. Thanks, Travis. It's like having a walking encyclopedia over there, just to be sure.
I was told by a Catholic priest one time that Buddhism is not a religion, it's a philosophy.
Yeah. My favorite question in all of Intro to Buddhism questions, other than the one last Saturday. The question was, you were told by a Catholic priest once that Buddhism is not a religion, it's a philosophy. And how did that make you feel when you heard
Well, it didn't affect me more.
Pretty indifferent to it. Okay. That was a Catholic priest who really wanted you to check out Buddhism, right? So here's what's really important to understand about Buddhism with regards to it being a religion or philosophy. A lot of people come into Buddhist teachings later in life in Western cultures, if we were not raised Buddhist, which is majority of us in this room, right? Coming out of other religions, right? Just about everybody in here, there's probably 2 Buddhists in the room. The people in here are Christian, they're Catholic, they're Muslim, they're Jewish, they're pagan, or they have no religious affiliation or belief at all. But we've come into Buddhist practice later in life for various reasons, right? Often people come into Buddhism because they have a bad taste of religion in their mouth. And they think, well, I don't like religion, so I'm going to go check out Buddhism because it's a philosophy and a way of life. If that story works for you, then by all means, keep it, right? The Buddha, by definition, religion is a belief in a God or higher power. That doesn't exist in Buddhist teachings. As I just said, the Buddha was just a human, right? So he wasn't asking you to believe in him. He was very clear, like, here's my teachings. Try them. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, abandon it, right? Don't believe in me. I'm just some dude. I mean, I'm not quoting him there, but that's basically what he was saying. Here's a way to live a simple, peaceful, happy life. Try it. And if it works for you, great. If not, move on. That's what he said. So there was no belief in a God, right? By definition, in kind of our modern day definition, that doesn't make it a religion. That makes it a philosophy and a way of life. And that works for like 95% of people who come into Buddhism. Because very often, as I said earlier, we're turned off by religion. You have no idea how many people have said to me, I love Buddhism because it's not a religion, it's a philosophy, right? That's often and they're actually very attached to that story. I hate religion, I like Buddhism. Well, that sounds like you got a lot of anger there that you need to work through. That would be the Buddhist teaching on that, is work through your anger. Now, the flip side to this, if you go to Taiwan, if you go to Japan, if you go to Thailand today, or any other culture, what I call cultural temples, even in, there's 10 of them within 5 miles from here. If you go into a Thai temple and you say this isn't a religion, it's a philosophy and a way of life, that's kind of insulting. It'd be like walking into the Catholic Church and saying this isn't a religion, this is a way of life. So it has and is considered one of the world's oldest, longest practiced religions, and it is practiced religiously all over the world with a tremendous amount of devout faith and belief in Buddhist teachings. So the sum of that is, whatever you want to call it, you can call it that. I don't mean just you, but however it works for you, Buddhists don't care. The Buddha wouldn't have cared what you called it, right? If watching cartoons makes you a kinder, gentler, happier person, then watch more cartoons. If Donald Duck said something to be kind, then, all praise Donald Duck. So it's a very, the reason I said there was a Catholic priest who probably loved Buddhism, it's very much I know so many, I do a lot of interfaith work, and so many religious leaders of various faiths that love Buddhism. And they will all tell you, go learn about Buddhism, go practice Buddhism, because it will not contradict with your existing religious faith. So the Dalai Lama once said, someone asked him if this country the United States needed more Buddhists. And he said, the world has enough Buddhists. We don't need any more. This country just needs more people that are peaceful and happy. So, does that help? Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
You might not be able to do this in 15 minutes. I think you just said that Buddhists don't believe in an individual soul.
Mm-hmm.
So that reincarnation, I have to get a very, very vague understanding of anything.
Yeah. So the question was that,
If you don't
I'm-
believe in
yeah,
a soul,
I got you. I'm just playing it in my head. The question is, if I just said that the Buddhist teachings were not a belief in a soul, what about reincarnation, right? So This one's actually really simple. There is, in Buddhist teachings, whatever term you want to use in the English language, reincarnation, rebirth, continuation of consciousness, the Buddha taught that, right? But what you're basically inferring is that the only thing that continues on is a soul. And that's what the Buddha was saying is incorrect. That's our very Western-minded attachment, not even just Western, from back then too, but our attachment to this soul, right? And let me back up a little bit for those who might be brand new to Buddhism as well, to put it into context. At that time of the Buddha, again, 500 years before Christ, in India, if you walked up to somebody then and said, hey, you have one life and then you're going to heaven or hell, they would have thought you were really, really weird. Now, fast forward 2,500 years later, if you go up to the average person today and tell them you're going to be reborn, most people are going to look at you and think you're really weird, right?
Not in India.
Not in India. Not exactly. Just, here. But in India, that's exactly all over the world, or many parts of the world, that's still the belief. Rebirth, reincarnation, continuation of consciousness. Now, the question really revolves around, well, what is it then that is reborn, that continues? There's what's called a laya vijnana. It's called a storehouse consciousness. It's a collection of all of your karma, all of your actions, everything you have ever thought, ever said, and ever done is your consciousness. The mistake we make is we think that that consciousness is our own. The mistake we make is me thinking I, Jeff, was born 46 years ago and that it all started right then. And that everything I've ever done is my consciousness from that point in time. I'm not thinking about the consciousness that has existed for endless time in the past or the consciousness that will exist for endless time in the future. I'm looking at it from a very narrow view of Jeff. Birth, death, what do I do in between those two posts? That's not the correct view according to the Buddhist teachings. There was a monk years ago, he gave a great talk, and he said the mistake people who were not raised in making, were not raised with this belief, the mistake we often make is we think that everything starts and ends with birth and death, and that they're these individual lives. But really, it's our physical form that dies. Our continuation of consciousness has been around forever and will exist forever. It just changes form, just like energy or anything like that. Changes form. So what continues on, what the idea of this soul, the soul is very like mine, me, my soul. And the Buddhist teachings are, it's your consciousness, but it's not yours. You don't own it. It's not you. It's just consciousness that is in this shell right now. And when we die, that consciousness will have a rebirth, a reincarnation, and will continue on. But once I'm born and someone's like, your parents are there, they're like, there's Jeff. And I'm like crying and screaming. And they're like, Jeff, Jeff, Jeff. And I'm like, oh, my name is Jeff. Then my whole life, I just identify by that name. And then I create all the stories about who I am and where I'm from and all my experiences. And I create this whole label and box in my head of who I think I am and how I think I'm supposed to be. And I'm very stuck by that story. Now, I always like to kind of wrap up the rebirth topic around, I don't care if anyone in this room believes in rebirth or reincarnation or not. I look at it as a practice of every moment we are reborn. Every moment our consciousness is continuing. So if you would like to have a pleasant afternoon, what does that often mean? Have a pleasant morning. If you'd like to have a pleasant evening, what does that often mean? Have a pleasant afternoon. So I spend zero time thinking about rebirth, reincarnation, continuation of consciousness, unless it's asked in this setting. For me as a practitioner, I focus on what am I thinking, what am I saying, what am I doing right now? Because that's what will continue on the rest of my day. And then when I die, the physical form dies, whether you go to heaven or hell, whether there's a rebirth, continuation of consciousness, all of that is determined by my actions either way. So focus on your actions. That's really the important part. Yeah. Other questions? Now that we got rebirth and religion out of the way. Yeah.
So, from Buddhism, Buddha talks about diligence in your practice. And so when we think about diligence, when I think about diligence, I think about something really like the kind of like, the stern and kind of catch the practice. So where does the softness come in? Like, eventually, like, when you kind of diligent.
Yeah. So I think if I heard you correctly, you're asking about the practice of diligence. And for you, I think the way you just described it was that for you, in your mind, diligence seems like very aggressive or harsh. I don't think you said harsh, but you said aggressive, right? And so where's like the softness around diligence come into play? Is that okay? So yeah, great question. And I'll kind of close with this thought. In the Buddhist teachings, just again, sum up for anyone who's new, there's what's called the Bodhisattva practice. And for me, this is the foundation of my Buddhist practice and what I share the most, which is the 6 paramitas. And these 6 paramitas are practices. The word paramita means perfection. It doesn't mean you're perfect or that you're trying to be perfect. It's just an idea of living a kind, gentle life and how we can get there. And these 6 practices are generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. The funny thing about the paramitas is the same thing with the Eightfold Path, having the correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. On the Eightfold Path, which is the path to ending suffering, as taught by the Buddha, where is meditation? Last. Mindfulness and concentration is last on the list of the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path does and should be practiced in order. And even with the paramitas, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. So it's 5th out of the 6th. The reason I bring this up is because when we look at diligence, often, or any of the paramitas, often what a lot of people come into Buddhism for and continue to think Buddhism is all about is just meditation. And that's not correct. None of us are sitting in this room right now because we have a great or terrible meditation practice. We're in this room right now because we've suffered a lot in our lives, which is completely irrelevant from your meditation practice. We've suffered a lot in our lives because we're greedy, we're angry, we ignore truth, right? We lie, we steal. The morality piece of it. I mean, how many of you came here this morning because you want to make sure that you spend the rest of your life never telling a lie? Nobody woke up and said, I'm going to go to meditation because I want to work on morality today, right? I used to joke in our old location, I promise I'm getting back to your question. Our old Buddha for You, for many of you who remember it, we had a sign in the window that said free meditation. And we pack everybody in there twice a week. Now, if that sign said free morality, how many people would have shown up for that class? Right? So we come because we want the meditation. I'm generalizing, of course, but that's what let's go to meditation, let's go to meditation, let's go to meditation. So that's where it starts for a lot of people. But the things like diligence, morality, right? These are incredibly important. The reason we seek meditation is because we don't do the other ones. So our life becomes a big mess. Now, the practice around diligence is the last thing the Buddha taught before he died. Right? There he is, he's 80 years old, and they all gather around him, and it's his time to pass on. And he gives one last teaching. His teaching was strive on with diligence. Be enlightened to yourself, because they were worried about who was going to teach them now. He said, I've been teaching you for 45 years. Strive on with diligence. And then he passed on. So important, right? But your question really is, how do we do that? Yeah? So we can be diligent in a lot of things that are harmful. You have any bad habits? Please don't list them all. Right? You got at least one bad habit. How diligent are you at that bad habit? There's a lot of head shaking up and down. You can't all see it, right? We are so diligent. Anyone ever binge watch 12 hours of Netflix? There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of diligence. takes a lot of work to watch Netflix 12 hours straight and not get up to go pee. You know? You ever sat there and had like a whole pizza, like worked really hard on eating the whole pizza, and you're like, there's 2 slices left, I'm just going to let it rest for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to finish it all. That takes a lot of diligence. You know? You ever argued with somebody for like an hour? That takes a lot of diligence. We have so much capacity in our lives to be diligent. But we're being diligent about the wrong things. Karmalekshi Soma is a great Tibetan nun, and she's taught here for years. And she gave a talk one time, and this was at UCSD, and she was talking about mindfulness, which relates to your question, really. And she said, someone could mindfully rob a bank. Right? You could mindfully murder somebody. So mindfulness without moral, ethical behavior doesn't get you so far in Buddhist practice, right? I'm going to mindfully lie to somebody. I'm going to be very careful and diligent and aware while I lie to you. The first step on the Eightfold Path is having correct views, right? The Four Noble Truths, life is filled with suffering. 1, doesn't mean all life sucks. It just means we're going to suffer a lot. Second one is the cause. Cause of suffering is greed, anger, and ignorance. The third one is the ending of suffering. That's the liberation, nirvana, freedom from suffering. And the fourth one is the Eightfold Path, which I mentioned earlier. And the first one in the Eightfold Path is having the correct view. It all starts from here. If your view is that what you're doing is coming from a place of ego, pride, self, and it's all about you, then your diligence probably won't help you much. And I'm not talking about, being healthy and taking care of yourself, right? Yoga, you have to be very diligent. So be diligent with things that are healthy. But the things that don't bring health into our lives or lives of others, abandon those. I mean, you're with me so far? You're not like, most people are not, you use the word aggressive. Most people are not, well, actually maybe they are, but most people are not aggressively diligent while they're watching Netflix for 12 hours. We're just into it. So be into everything you're doing, but do more things that are healthy for you and those around you. And again, coming back to the correct view, it's always for me as a practitioner about intention. Is what I am being diligent on or with or whatever about benefiting me or for the benefit of others, right? And again, for those who might be new, that doesn't mean that taking care of you is not important. You exist. You just exist differently from how you perceive yourself, but it doesn't mean you abandon you. It doesn't mean you take care of everybody else and forget about you. That is not healthy. That is not wise. So there's a balance. We're no more important than anybody else, but we're also no less important than anybody else. So you have already, I'm sure, many examples in your life of how you can be diligently or diligent and be gentle and kind. Now we just need to shift what we're being diligent with. Right? Helpful? Yeah. And I'll touch on briefly because as we close, for me, diligence very early on in my practice, and I didn't really think about this until I just finished speaking, is, I grew up very aggressive, and I still am very aggressive, very passionate with everything. But the question was, can you shift and make what you're aggressive and passionate about good stuff? And that diligence, that aggression, a lot of that was driven out of anger towards self or towards others. So I think also with diligence is, can we bring compassion into what we're being diligent with? And I think if you bring more compassion and love, kindness into the actions that you're lacking or that you have diligence with, some of that aggressiveness, if you're using aggressive in a negative way or in a bad way, which it sounded like.
I guess I was talking about, sometimes you have like a good drill sergeant voice in your head, right? That just kind of, because if you haven't kept up with something or something like that, give yourself a hard time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that, as you say, that drill sergeant in your head, and you're real aggressive. If you haven't kept up with something, having self-anger, self-hatred towards yourself for being lazy is not helpful. Recognize we've just been lazy, but don't turn being lazy into hating yourself. Recognize you just, again, watched Netflix for 12 hours and ate an entire pizza. Not the end of the world, but don't spend the rest of your life doing that every single day. Right? So, kindness towards self, compassion towards self is so important. And if you have that kind of drill sergeant in your head mentality, as you said, don't forget to kind of pat yourself on the back a little bit and hug yourself once in a while. And as Shunner Suzuki said, you're all perfect exactly how you are, and you all could use a little improvement. So, keep working. All right, so we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to the more than 4 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to their family and friends who continue to suffer at this day. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you all head out on your rush to go be nice to people. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple about 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers. We're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Just about every night we have different practices going on, as I alluded to earlier. Only thing in person right now, Tuesday night, I lead the class. Wednesday night, Alex does a metta loving kindness practice. And Thursday night, Travis, our walking encyclopedia, he does our Dharma Bum basics and meditation on Thursdays. And then I do this again on Saturdays. Our recovery Sangha is meeting in person Sunday morning here at 10 a.m. and Tuesday night downstairs. So the only classes that do still require RSVP is this one for Saturday and the Tuesday night recovery Sangha. Typically we throw 70, 80 people in here, and none of you all most likely, nor myself, would be comfortable with that many people in here. So we limit it for the safety of everybody. We do appreciate you wearing the masks. It is required. We appreciate you signing in and letting us microchip you at the door. It allows us to track everyone, so thank you very much. Normally, we don't care who comes in, who goes, anything like that, but obviously during a pandemic and for the health and safety of our community and the community at large, we do our best to keep everything healthy so we can remain open. And again, that's why we're limiting things. It just allows us to manage and monitor what we're actually open for. On that note, the temple does close during the week. We're open 12 to 3 on Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday through Friday in the morning, we do practice from 8 to 9. It's a silent meditation, 2 30-minute sessions. And then the temple closes all day and then opens up in the evening for that class. Sunday night, we have a really beautiful Tonglen practice. It's a Tibetan Buddhist practice. This is online. It's ascending, receiving compassion. Anyone that you know might be ill or needing some prayers, it's like putting out a prayer request. Website has under Tonglen program, you can take 30 seconds if you want them to send some prayers or love for anybody. They'll do that as well. So Buddha for You also during the week is closed for the most part. It is open Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 3. So right now downstairs, same thing tomorrow. Maggie's down there if you need anything. And we do also from 12 to 2 after today outside. Tom and Kira. Tom can raise his hand, and Kira's probably out. Oh, there you are. I say she's probably outside already. They do stick around. You're welcome to garden. We have no cleaning crew here at the temple. We are the cleaning crew. So if anyone wants to sweep, pick up leaves, take out the trash, all those things need to get done. So we appreciate everybody just doing their small part to help us keep this place going. So we appreciate you being here. And again, thank you. Please be safe, and we'll see you all soon. And you can just, if you want to stick around and help sweep or clean or anything, Tom and Kira will be outside out front there. And thank you, Tom and Kira.